I think you can see me now. I can see myself, and you said you could hear me, and I didn't change that part of it, so I assume it's good to go now. So, here I am. Not that it makes that much difference really if I'm on camera, but I guess it's, that's why I set this whole thing up. So there's got to be some justification for it. It must make sense somehow. Well, good afternoon. Hello, and welcome to DGST 395, Applied Digital Studies. So good to see you all, or good for you to see me now that that's working. So today, the main thing I want to do is preview, because I'm still not ready to share it with you, Node 1. But I do want to show you the content, take you through some of the ideas, remind you about the structure, and then I'll share it with you later, probably this afternoon. As you'll see when I show it to you, I'm still tweaking some parts of it, and I want to make sure that I get those right before I share it, because you're going to be making a copy of it, and I won't be able to tweak it after I've sent it to you. But I want to show it to you, take you through it, talk about it, and do a couple other things too today as we see. So S. Berkeley just wrote a comment in Twitch. You said there's an error and won't load anything. Do you mean in Twitch? If that's the case, then maybe try reloading it. Actually, if you can't see anything, you can't hear me say that. So let me try to just type in the chat here. A lot of times with audio video things, refreshing the browser will work, or closing it, opening it again. In my case, just now for the webcam, I had to actually do that, and then also unplug and plug it back in, the USB. It's a USB webcam. So once I did that, it seems to have worked. Actually, let me check my audio, make sure I'm on the right. Since I just did that swap, I might be on the wrong audio channel. Let me just make sure that I'm on the good one, and I am not, so let me switch. So that hopefully sounds better now. I just switched from the webcam audio to my microphone audio. So hopefully that sounds good. Hopefully we're just about ready to actually get started with something. Yeah, okay, great, all right, excellent. Good, so as usual, if you are watching this, you're welcome to leave comments or questions in the Twitch chat or the Discord chat, and we're actually going to be using Discord for something in a little bit, so make sure you are in Discord if you're not already. If you are in Discord, by the way, you probably saw me testing something earlier in Discord. It didn't totally work, so I'm going to keep researching and testing. Basically, there are different things that I would like for us to watch, or I'd like for you to watch, and I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that I can stream those things through Discord and thereby avoid the copyright infringement that would be the case if I were to stream it over Twitch or over YouTube. So I'm still trying to figure that out. It sounds like it sort of worked. It sounds like it sort of the audio did not work at all. So that's not totally working. All right. So Grace had a question just now on Twitch. Is most of your work going to be through Google Drive? And quite a lot of it will be, yes. So as I'll show you with Node 1, these are essentially workbooks. So they will have instructions and then places for you to do something, and so it'll be there. Now, that's the work that I'm going to be giving you. A big chunk of this semester is the big project, which is something you're going to be designing and doing yourself. So you may work in Google Drive for that, or you may work elsewhere. But as far as the things I give you, quite a bit will be through Google Drive, starting with this node and going from there. I just find it really convenient for organizing files, ultimately. Like, that's the main thing that I find valuable about Google Drive, as opposed to various other ways of sharing files. It's just really convenient. So, and also, like, you can get a lot of storage space if you need it, which is nice. Okay, so before I get into, well, maybe I'll just open this up so it's on screen here while I'm talking for a bit, because I wanted to talk about Canvas, but I don't want to open up, actually no, I do want to open up Canvas, come think of it. I do want to show you a couple of things. One thing in Canvas, let me log in. I've been having issues with logging in. And yeah, as it says, my browser does not meet the requirements, but it actually does. Go away. It does fine. I'm going to be showing you something here in the file section eventually. But the main thing I wanted to draw your attention to in Canvas, and I'm not going to click through it because this will show you'll have your names on it, but I have put you all into cohorts based on your preferences that you expressed. and I'm just going to double check that on my other screen while I'm talking. The preferences that you expressed in the survey, and I think I just had one more come through, and I have not necessarily put that person in a cohort yet, I don't think, but I will, and I will make sure to get that right. So double check what you're in and make sure that makes sense to you. If you are not sure how to find it, there's a people link on the left. It looks a little different for you because you have fewer options than I have in the navigation, but click on your people link and you should see the groups there. In fact, no, I'm not going to click on it. If you click on it, you'll see a group set called F2F cohorts. That's just face-to-face cohorts. So when you click on that tab, then you should see them all, including whichever one you're in. There are 5 cohorts, so you should be in, one of those. Make sure it makes sense. So there are 2 Section 1 cohorts, 2 Section 2 cohorts, and 2 general cohorts. I mean, 1 general cohort that's not tied to a specific section. So now that I think of it, maybe I should split that into 2, but we'll leave it as it is for now. So make sure you're in one that makes sense. Like make sure that it's the correct section, right? That you're in a Section 1 cohort if you are in Section 1, and right now if you're watching this and you're in the 140 class, that's Section 1. So make sure you're in that, and also make sure the Friday-Wednesday thing makes sense. Just to remind you how this is going to work, and again, this is still hypothetical, right? Because or best case scenario, but what we're hoping for is that we'll be going back face to face, but not all at once. So I will be meeting with approximately half of each section at a time. The other half of a section that isn't meeting on a particular day will still be expected to do things, and you'll have instructions and things to work through in your node, but it won't be carried out face to face. So, and then everyone who's online only, which is a significant number in this class, you all will just do work on your own, like the other non-face-to-face cohort for that day, if that makes sense, and maybe even coordinating with them sometimes. So when you find yourself in a cohort that's telling you which day of classes I would expect you to be there, so make sure it makes sense. A couple of you had requests, like if you're also in my graphic novel class, you requested being in the same day of cohort. So I think I got that right, but if not, let me know. And also if you see any other issues with where I've aligned you, then let me know. I have also created face-to-face cohort channels in our Discord server. And these are places for you to touch base with that cohort and as you'll see today, to coordinate activities sometimes. That'll be a place where if you're not face-to-face on a particular day, you can still find the same group of people. And I think for a lot of the things we're going to be doing in this class, it's useful sometimes to have a smaller group to talk to online. If we are trying to talk, if there's 51 of us trying to have a single conversation, it can get really chaotic and not necessarily very productive. However, if it's 10 people, that can kind of work. That's still kind of a lot, but that's much more likely to be successful than 50 people at once. So that's the reason that your cohort is both in Canvas for you to find, and also a channel space in Discord. So that's the idea. Okay, so if you do have any issues or questions or problems, send me an email or message me in Discord, and we'll get that figured out. Okay, sound good? So if you want to right now, even you could go find your face-to-face cohort section in Discord and just say hi to start the conversation there. I'm going to give you all instructions shortly for what to actually do in that group. I'm going to have a directed activity for each of those cohorts to try to do on their own. Okay, so let's talk about nodes. I will show it to you, but I'm not going to give it to you yet. So I will give you this link later, but I want to show it to you now in the form that it is so I can talk about how it works and how you're going to be using it. I gave you a generic introduction to notebooks on Wednesday with an example one, and that was just meant to introduce the basic idea of what a Colab notebook is and show you where code is and how that works. But now I'm going to give you some actual content, right? So what is this? Sorry, I just see a weird typo here. Why does it say italicized text? That often happens when I click on buttons I don't intend to when I open these up. All right, so am I still showing you this? Yes, I am, but I'm going to shift this over slightly so you can see it better. Okay, so this is the first node, and again, just giving you a quick tour of it right now. I'm not going to actually I'm not going to let you have a copy of it just yet. So hang tight, almost ready for that, but I wanted to do as much as I can to make this as complete as possible. So I'm going to go through and collapse several things first. And this is, as you can see, kind of a schedule and kind of a workbook. So each of these days is going to have content and then directions and notes about what's going on. And it's also going to be a place for you to leave notes and add things of your own. So you're going to make, the first thing you're going to do after, once I give you the link here, is make a copy of this node and then start adding your own content to it. In some cases, it'll be things that you probably want to wait until we actually do it on a particular day. But even in those cases, you're welcome to work ahead if that helps you. Like, go through and do whatever you can. It just maybe there's things that kind of build up in some cases, and you may not be able to. But yeah, it'll be yours to work with however you want. And then on September 9th, when this is due, then I'm just going to ask you to share your notebook back to me, submit it through Canvas. I'll show you how to do that. There's actually 2 ways to do that in Canvas, and one way does not really work, even though Canvas says it does. It doesn't. So I'll show you the right way to turn that in Canvas, and then I'll have access to it, and I'll be able to go back through your notebook and leave comments or suggestions or provide feedback in whatever method makes the most sense. So if you remember the way that the notebook works, you've got a table of contents on the left, and that's probably a good introduction to the structure here. I've also, the collapsed view is also, I hope, pretty good. But each node will have a similar kind of structure where there'll be a preamble, and that will, or some kind of introduction that gives you a general look at what's going on in this particular notebook. And then it goes day by day from there. So Friday, August 28th is today, and then we've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday. So that's a week and a half, a couple weeks worth of content for this class. And you can see from the outline view that is sort of behind my head. Let me move out of the way. This view, you can kind of see how this is structured. So for each day, you've got an agenda where it will be a list of things that are going on, and then there's going to be something to do. So here's going to be, I'll talk about these specific things in a minute, but you've got this thing here, which is called Why Program. It's going to be a opportunity for you to write what I'm calling a coding manifesto, and I'll talk about that shortly, but that's going to be something for you to add to this. And then I've got some code practice sections here as well. And I tried to use emoji to make these things stand out visually and to help separate them a little bit. But I still need, I have a little bit more work to do in that because as you can see, it's kind of less consistent as it goes down. So I'm going to be working on that. That's one of those tweaks that I want to try to make. I want to make this as clean as possible for you. So let me see. Now this is, because I've organized this with headings and children, you can display and collapse. This little arrow next to a heading thing lets you drop something down and open it and see what's in there, and then you can click again to hide it. And I organize it that way because this is going to end up being a very long notebook, and it'll be a lot of content. And if you keep the organization the way I have it here, it should remain relatively easy to sort that and hide the stuff you don't need and then show the stuff you do need. So let's take a look at the preamble. This is where I'm giving you basically the explanation I just said out loud, which is what this is, and explaining how this works. And this is the summary of the actual contents that we're going to be looking at. And I provided this summary here at the top for you to refer to later. I don't intend you to go through everything right now all at once, but this is just like later on, if you are trying to remember a particular link or the name of something, they're all listed here in the summary. They're also listed on the day in question where you need to have access to that thing or where you need to do something with it. But this is kind of like an index of everything. I might actually put this at the end actually because it's a bit like overwhelming at the front like that. But that's just there for reference really. So on a particular day, this is today, so here's what's going on. I've broken it down, each agenda, into 3 sections. So there's a before class today, that's like what your homework was from before. Here's a during class today, so tune into your live stream, you've done that, so here you are. Or maybe you're watching this on YouTube and that's fine, but I'll have these links here. And then I'll have some notes about what's actually going on. And as you can see here, there's a bit of a Discord, a bit of some instruction in Discord. And I just saw, did I just see a question? Sorry, it just popped up and then went away. Let me see what that was. So, okay, I see you, and I'll type a response, but thanks for letting me know. All right, so yeah, I'll take you through these instructions momentarily, the actual thing that I'm directing you to here. But that's the idea. This is an example of how a day is going to look. And then there's some homework that I would like for you to do after today. You can even start it while I'm talking. I will have no way of knowing. So go ahead and do that if you feel like it. But you probably want to wait until later, where I'm going to ask you to, what I want you to do is think about programming or code. I mean, it's interesting in looking at this, the terms programming and coding are synonyms in the way I'm using them and the way most people use those terms, but like they are slightly different words. They have slightly different context and origins, maybe implications. So feel free to play around with that, right? I mean, I've posed the question down here, why program? But if you feel like, why code? If you feel like addressing it that way, that would be totally fine, or some other equivalent. Okay, so I'm going to get into the actual content here in a moment, but I'm still showing you structure. So that's Friday, and then this is Monday, and then we'll kind of go on with some things there. As you can see, I've got some links, and each day is going to have this section at the end, and this is a blank day that I haven't filled in yet, so this is maybe even a better explanation of the structure. Each day has a section for notes. That's for you to leave any thoughts you have, or feedback, or reflection, or whatever, and you may have your own system for taking notes, and that's fine. You're welcome, of course, to use that. But this is a place in some cases where I will be directing you to put something or to answer some question or something like that. So someone just asked, where is this? And I have not given it to you yet, but I will. What I'm going to do is, so if you see the home page here in Canvas, this Colab Notebooks icon is not a link yet, but I will make that a link, and also I'll send you an announcement. But I'm going to make an index of all of the notebooks that I will add to whenever I release a new notebook, so you can always find those. So I will share that probably later this afternoon or evening, once I've got this a little bit more cleaned up and ready to go. All right, but I will talk about the things that you need to be doing soon. So you should have plenty of time to prepare for Monday. Okay, so let's talk about content, or let me talk about content. The first section that we're looking at, the first question we're looking at here in class is this idea of algorithms, and I continue to use that phrase as or that word as a way to reference things that people do with computers and ways that computers influence our lives. If this were a face-to-face class, I would probably have an open discussion about, like, what does that term mean to you? Where have you heard it? What does it suggest? And we can even look at the etymology of that word, and we can break that down. I mean, you're welcome to share any thoughts you have on those questions in Discord, but it's not really, the whole system doesn't work quite as well for open-ended questions like that. But sorry, I just saw a question, but I will answer those questions later. But the idea of algorithms and their influence on our lives is something that we should think about and be aware of. I can think of a couple of really kind of trivial examples, but perhaps you can think of better ones. The way that I deal with, or I encounter an algorithm frequently, is on Twitter. And on Twitter, especially the app, it has, like, historically, like, Twitter's gone through several stages, right? It used to be that you would actually be able to see everyone's tweets on Twitter in your, like, home screen, in your timeline. You would be able to see everybody. Eventually, or pretty quickly, as Twitter got more popular, that became too much, and so it only showed you tweets from people that you follow. And I always enjoyed the fact that Twitter shows you everything just in order. It just shows you the most recent thing, and that's it. As opposed to Facebook, where Facebook gives you the things that it thinks you're going to interact with. So Facebook has always been, at least as far as I recall anyway, an algorithmically curated homepage. So it's always going to be saying, here's the things that it thinks that I think you need to see. And there are people that that I'm Facebook friends with, that every now and then I think, hey, I haven't seen them on Facebook for a long time. I wonder if they're okay. And then I go and check, and they are, and they've been posting. It's just that Facebook hasn't thought that I wanted to see them, so I didn't get to see them. At the same time, maybe you experience this too. There are people on Facebook whose opinions I don't care to see that often, and because it's going to make me mad. And so I do actually respond to that, and the algorithm seems to pick up on that, and it notices that this is something that's going to perhaps encourage my engagement, because that's what the algorithm's been measuring. And so it's going to measure the fact that I look at that post for a little while, that I think about commenting. There are ways in which Facebook can measure that, because it can look at my browser position, look at my mouse and my cursor position, if I hover it over the reaction icon even. Those are things that Facebook can measure, and so it thinks of that as engagement, and then it thinks, well, Zach must really be interested in things by this person, and in fact, I'm not. In fact, I would, intellectually, conceptually, I would really rather not see that person's posts, but that's okay. So that's a trivial example. Well, I say trivial. The thing that I encounter frequently on the Twitter app especially is that it actually started algorithmically sorting or curating the tweets that it thinks I want to see. And it actually has changed the terminology. It used to just be your timeline, and now you have two different timelines, where one is called latest tweets and the other one is called home. And home is the curated algorithmic feed, and then latest is just in order. And I prefer the latest just in order one, so I keep switching back to it, but Twitter keeps trying to get me, or actually switching me to the home version instead, and I don't want that. So anyway, it's just a trivial example of how the algorithm has been sort of annoying. But some of the things we're going to look at are much more insidious and possibly destructive applications of algorithms in making decisions that impact people's lives and opportunities. So we want to think about this both in terms of what algorithms and computing can do to make the world a better place, and also ways in which people's over-reliance on them can make the world a worse place. And that's a very broad simplification of that. In order to understand those possibilities, I think it's important to learn how to program, or at least learn a bit about what programming is and how it works. And so I want us to spend a little time here at the outset of this node thinking about what programming, what code means to you, and giving you a chance to reflect and write on that a little bit. So this is, as you see, today's notes. And what I'm going to prompt you to do, and this is your homework, so I'll talk about this first and then I'll get back to the activity, is I'd like for you to write a manifesto, a coding manifesto. Think of it as answering the question, why program, or why code, if you'd rather do it that way. Now, a manifesto is a particular genre of writing, and if you want, you can learn about it from this really weirdly detailed WikiHow article about, oops, not that. I didn't mean to click that, they tricked me. No, go away. And so if you would like to read about how to write manifestos, great. But it doesn't have to be that nuanced or long or detailed at all. Really, this is meant to serve your purposes more than mine. So I think writing a paragraph, a healthy paragraph, let's say, is a perfect length. You're answering the question why program, but answer it in a declarative, kind of aspirational way. Like, here's what I think, and here's what I hope this is going to do for me, or whatever. Think of it in terms of that. And I'll show you some examples or give you some ideas of the kinds of reasoning and arguments that some people have made. But yeah, do that. So you are welcome to share this in Discord if you'd like, but I mainly just want you to add it to your own personal notebook so you have it to refer to, and then later I can see it as well. Okay, so that's your homework. And there's also some homework down here, which I'll talk about later. So today, though, and for the rest of the time, I would like for us to consider different ways that people argue for programming or in favor of doing programming. And there's lots of different ways you can learn programming, and not as many as you would think justifications for learning to program. A lot of times if you find a website, then there are lots of websites that are great at teaching you how to code. Very rarely do they say, okay, here's why you might want to code. They assume, or they take for granted, that you're on this website because you want to learn how to code, and so they just start doing it. And that makes sense from their point of view, I'm sure. But we're being more thoughtful here, so I want us to take a little bit of time and try to figure out why people think coding is a good idea. I've given you a couple thoughts already, but I'm not the only person who can have an influence on your ideas and your thinking. You probably have experience already with code, either positive or negative, and so I'm kind of curious how that might play into this.
So here's what I'm going to do. There are 3 cohorts that I know that there are some of you are in. So I'm going to go into each of those channels now in Discord, and I'm going to keep the stream going, but I'm going to go into each of those channels. I'm going to give you an example of a place where people learn how to code, and I'm going to invite you as a group to try to find out what you can about that place's motivations and orientations for or justifications for learning how to code. So I'm kind of describing it in generic terms. So let me do that in more specific terms in the actual channels. So find the right channel for you. This is section 1 Wednesday, section 1 Friday, or online only. So let me go into these, and I'm going to, I mean, the way that these channels work, this is not like a Slack channel where you have to where you have to join a channel. You all automatically have access to all of these channels, but just actually visit the one that corresponds to your channel, to your cohort. And let me pose a couple of questions. I'm going to kind of talk as I'm typing here, so give me a moment. So I'm going to give you all codecademy.com, section 1 Wednesday. Okay, so I'm trying to work with the phrasing here. So the website I'm giving you again is codecademy.com, and this is a very popular tutorial-based website for learning how to program in lots of different languages, including Python. You're welcome to use it for anything, by the way. I do find, I think their pedagogical method I find a little bit frustrating, so I don't personally use it that much, but if you like it, then by all means, go ahead. So I've posted a prompt here now for section 1 Wednesday, which is see what you can learn about what Codecademy has to say about why someone would want to learn how to program. I think that's a good way to phrase it. It's pretty simple. So see what you can figure out there. Okay, so that's section 1 Wednesday. Section 1 Friday. No one's posted here yet, but I assume some of you are here, so I'm going to post a similar question here, but instead of codecademy.com, how about, let's see, I've got a list of these. Yeah, how about you all take code.org. Okay, so hopefully someone is in that channel. No one's posted yet, so if you are, then maybe say hi, so I can have some confirmation that section 1 Friday actually has people in it. And then for the online only cohort, which is, there's at least one person there. Hello. How about you all look at, oh, this is a good one. For the online only, how about codecombat, I can't say it, codecombat.org. So again, why would someone want to learn how to program? How does this particular website answer that question, if they do at all? Okay. So I will, of course, keep the stream going, but at this point, you're kind of on your own in your groups to work through these. Of course, I'd like to hear what you find out. So I will kind of stay on the line, as it were, and give you a chance to figure these things out and respond to them. And someone just asked if they were in the right cohort. I can look that up for you. Just give me a second. Oh, that's the wrong class. Hang on. Too many. Oh, right, yes. You were in the right place now. Interesting, yeah. So I'm just noticing somebody in the Section 1 Wednesday group, they're looking at, well, I can say the first name, right? Emily, you're looking at Codecademy, and you've noted the career motivation, right? The idea that this is, or no, you've noted the dream job quote. And yeah, maybe that's it, right? I mean, the idea that you can do this and then get a job doing this. I think that's a pretty compelling reason for a lot of things, right? Now there's a implication behind that, right? There's, well, two at least. Well, probably more, right? So let me just join it here by typing. So career growth is a factor, but what about the implications behind that? Okay, so yeah, a couple of things that occur to me as far as implications of that claim, right? If the claim is doing this will help you get a job, there's an implication that there are jobs out there to get. Also, there's an implication that it is good to get these jobs. Like, these are both good jobs, but also it is good for these jobs to exist, right? So if we believed that there should be no programming, then we would not tell people to get jobs being programmers, in other words, to kind of reverse that. So yeah, I mean, these are things we can keep teasing out. Like, this is sort of the Socratic method, right? We could keep going into these and see how far into it we can get, or how far back we can go. All right, so code.org. Another thing you can do once you feel like, if you feel like you've kind of got an answer, like Codecademy, I think that's, you may not find much more material on the website itself, but another thing is to think about, like, who made this site and why? Like, what is their motivation in creating this, or what's their way? Why do they think this is a good thing, or why would they, or might they think this is a thing that people should do? Code.org has a very specific and interesting background. And I don't know much about Code Combat. That's the one I put for the online group. I don't really know much about them. I just think it's kind of a funny idea. So I thought that would be interesting to see. Okay, so yeah, there's an interesting idea Alex put in, the ability to create things from pure imagination. So is that from Code Combat, or is that your own idea? Because I mean, it's a good idea, but I'd want to say more, or try to find out more, right? Because there's lots of things I have imagined that I wanted to code, and then I have not been able to, or either not yet, or because it turned out to be impossible, or something like that. You know, there's a way in which I have these ideas, but getting them to work is a very different issue, and sometimes code isn't the problem. Sometimes it's just conceptually it's impossible. So I don't know. There was a digital, so like there's a digital poem I was trying to write, and I had an idea for it, and I was trying to create it to make it work. But what I found is that I don't want to get too far in the weeds with this, but I was trying to deal with SVG graphics and text paths and JavaScript animation. Like, the idea that I had, and I drew it out on paper, and it worked, it looked great, you know, conceptually. I could not get it to work consistently in browsers. I mean, I haven't dealt with SVG graphics very much, for one thing, but also what I discovered is that different web browsers, Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Safari, Opera, Brave, I tried a whole bunch. Every one of them dealt with SVG graphics in at least slightly different ways, and in some cases radically different ways. And so I had no way of really feeling confident that the poem I was creating would look like I wanted it to on a majority of people's computers. So that's really interesting. So I'm looking at Alex's comments on the online only cohort, and this you're come across some really common metaphors for programming. This idea that it's magic, and that you have wizardly power whenever you type code. I'm glad that you came across that, because that's a pretty common metaphor, not just in this particular website, but just in general computing history. The idea, like the idea that we're doing something, esoteric and arcane, and that we're unpacking this like mystical power. You get that a lot, and I think it's pretty interesting to think about why that might be the case. Any theories why? This magic terminology is pretty ubiquitous. You can think of examples like a lot of software will have a wizard, like where you set up something, it's usually just like walking through the process of creating something. So it's like you start here, and then if you choose this, make this choice, then you go here. So it's a really useful thing. But why do we call those wizards? Like it's not Gandalf. I mean, it's not like a being that's doing something powerful. Really, it's just a series of menus. And so why do we need to think of that as this personified thing called a wizard? Other things like on Linux computers, there's process, like if there's a process you don't want to be running anymore, like some software, you kill it, right? So why do we kill it as opposed to just stopping it, right? That personification ends up creeping into that. There are also, like, if you try to kill a process but it's still having an effect on the system, that's called a zombie process. I mean, that's interesting. So these things creep in, right? Maybe it's just that we need terminology, and so you might as well use personified terminology, but it shows up, right? So interesting thoughts too. Yeah, let me see here. Okay, great. So DJ on the Section 1 Friday cohort talking about code.org has pointed out that they have a particular motivation for code.org, making sense. They're trying to specifically reach out to women and minorities to try to create a broader, more diverse programming industry, and that definitely makes sense, and it's a worthy cause. I think then the question is, how does code.org's approach help that, right? How does the code.org actually accomplish that, and do they? And those are things that we can keep going with. But I think we can recognize the value of that, like the idea that more people are writing programming, doing programming. The idea that more people do programming, and more kinds of people, more people with different experiences get into doing programming. I think absolutely the better off we are. The better off we are as users of computing, and also people who create more things on top of that. It is the case that historically, going back through the decades, when you look at who has been programming and who has been there in the room to write the code, historically it's been white men overwhelmingly. So looking at getting different people in that room, more people in the room, I think is a good idea. And some of the stuff we'll look at this week and next week actually are examples of things that can go wrong if you don't have everyone in the room, or you don't have everyone represented in the room. And that can be, some cases, minor annoyances, some cases major issues. So oh, sorry, just in the live stream chat channel, someone said I tried coding and it was not successful. But trying coding means you are a coder. That's true, right? You've tried it. That's all you can do. Let's see, do we have a wizard emoji on here? I find I've been the emoji available in the Discord keyboard seems somewhat limited to me. Or at least I'm not able to find, maybe it doesn't have the right, or it doesn't have the synonyms I expect for certain things, and so it takes me a while to find the one I'm looking for. So I did find the wizard hat, but it's called Man Mage in here. Okay. Oh, sorry to hear that, Grace. It makes me cry sometimes too. That's right, good. I like that. I'm sure you are, but also I think learning that it's okay, like learning that it's okay to struggle is sometimes a lesson, and that's a kind of growth with coding. Coding makes me. It's been a while since I've cried because of coding, but I've definitely been extremely frustrated relatively recently with coding. It's just how it is, right? It's a complex thing, and so you're always going to have problems no matter how much of an expert you think you are. And I certainly don't think of myself as an expert, so I definitely recognize that. Yeah, things don't always go well, but that's okay. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me or what I'm trying to do. It just means that I need to think of a different approach. And that's the real challenge. Like that to me, once you get to that point where you can recognize limitations and then look for other approaches, that's success. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm just kind of riffing on the responses. Just Emily just pointed out, coding has the biggest highs and lows I've ever experienced. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that moment of exhilaration when it finally works, like that's what it's all about, really. Like that moment of I got it. Like that's amazing when that happens. So I hope that I can help facilitate some moments like that in this class. Like that's my that would be great. But even if not, still there's a lot of other kinds of understanding that can be important too. Okay, good. So some good things here. Let me say a few more words about the node, and then actually, I guess I should be wrapping it up soon, right? How long have I been going? Yeah. So, I just saw another question on Twitch. This may be a while ago, and so this is maybe you've already figured this out, but the question was about being in all the sections. And if you're talking about in Discord, yes, you can actually see every channel in Discord, and that's different from Slack. You might be used to Slack where you have to find a channel and then join it, and then you can see it. But in Discord, you can just see everything in our server all at once. And so you just kind of have to know which channel is the one that you're supposed to think of as your cohorts channel. And if you get in the wrong one, it's not a big deal, really. The point is it's just to organize you in a way that you're interacting with fewer people than the entire class all at once. So don't worry if you're in the wrong one. Except in the sense of showing up to class. For those classes, like that's for those cohorts, that's going to be important that you're in the right face-to-face cohort when you actually are face-to-face. But as far as online communication, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Okay, so like I said, I'm moving to the end here. So if you have questions, this would be a good time to get them in. I got started a little bit late, but I think that's all right. So what you're seeing, hopefully, in some of these websites and platforms that teach you how to code are some different ideas about coding, and some of those might make sense to you and some may not. Some might ring true to you, some might not. You've had some experience with coding probably in your life, either having tried to do it or just kind of knowing about it, or maybe just seeing it in a movie or something. So I mean, I take for granted that you at least know what coding is to some extent. So as you think about your own manifesto, think about how some of those explanations and justifications or depictions in movies, how do those things gel with your ideas of what coding is or what it could be for you? So don't worry too much about writing this correctly or in the right style. Like this is meant to be for you now. And then later on in the semester, after we spend some time with things, I'm going to ask you to come back to this and think about how it went and how you might have written it differently or other things. So really just think about yourself as the audience for this. Like think of your future self as the person who's going to read this. Of course, I will read it too, but that's the idea. So please do that before class on Monday. So looking at the Node notebook here, I will be sharing with this to you sometime today, sometime later today. And you'll have an opportunity to make a copy of it and then write your manifesto in here. Of course, you could start writing it somewhere else first and then paste it in. The other thing that I would like for you to do is, to get ready for class on Monday, is take a look at a couple of things. And I will show you these, and then I'll link to these in the announcement too later. But in Canvas, there are two, in the files section, you can go here and look at some things I've uploaded. And two things that I'd like to read that are pretty short. This is an excerpt from Nick Montfort's book, Exploratory Programming. I'm going to click it here. So Nick Montfort's book, Exploratory Programming, has been the textbook for this class when I've taught it for a while. But I decided not to assign the whole book this time because I feel like it's just sort of too much, especially for an online or hybrid version of this class. But he did an interesting thing in his textbook where he wrote, kind of answering the question that I posed to you all. he didn't want to take for granted that people want to program, so he thought it would be useful to explain why program? Why do some people program? So he gives some answers here that are based on his point of view and the kinds of people he imagines as the audience for this textbook, but it's pretty good. So take a look there. Not super long, but some of these things will probably seem familiar or ring true, and some of these things might seem kind of weird, honestly. I think Nick Montfort has a interesting and sometimes different point of view, so check that out, and we will kind of sum that up on Monday. The other thing I'd like you to look at, this is Douglas Ruskoff, and he has a book called Program or Be Programmed, and that book's title does kind of give away what he thinks, but this is the introduction to that book, and it's kind of small for some reason, but it's good enough. You can see there, the book is called Program or Be Programmed. This is the introduction where he lays out his thesis. You can also find different versions of him talking about this on YouTube. So I actually linked to one here, I think, yeah. So you can watch it here, and I'm not going to play it here, obviously, but you should be able to watch this on your own, 5 minutes of him explaining the idea behind this book. There are slightly longer versions of this and others, but basically it's this idea of program or be programmed. There's an agenda implied there. There's also a sense of power structure implied there. And so as you read or listen to Douglas Ruskoff, pay attention to who has power and who doesn't in his various scenarios he describes. Okay, so then otherwise I'll do another live stream on Monday, take you through some things, and you'll have your own notebook at that point to work with and then practice some things with. Okay, so any other thoughts? Any final questions? Let's see. Oh, Brian was answering my question about emoji. You can make your own, but it costs extra to use them across Discord servers. Okay. So you're saying you have to pay for it? I don't want to pay for anything. All right, well, I'll play around with it. Thanks for the suggestion. Wow. Okay. Nice. Yeah, and as you can see, as some of you have discovered, there's a memes channel in Discord. You're welcome to. That's just to post whatever you feel like posting. Doesn't matter. Same for the I just made a pictures of pets channel, just to share whatever. Like if you have a pet that's your co-pilot for this class, then or animal, whatever, nearby, then you're welcome to post. I don't have any pets right now. We have a fish. We don't. My daughter has a fish, and I will ask her permission to share a picture of it. Otherwise, there's squirrels, as you know, in the backyard, and there's also a groundhog and some rabbits back there. That's I'll try to get a picture of some of them, I guess, or the bird that visits this bush here. Maybe I'll try to get him on camera at some point. But yeah, just a place to share whatever. So, all right, well, I'm going to wrap it up, I believe. And yes, Alex, you will get access to it soon, today. Let me just answer, yes. So I'll send a Canvas announcement with that link, and also I'll add it to an index of what will eventually be all of the notebooks. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up here so I can take a break and get ready for the next section. But thanks for watching. If you have any questions, of course, I'll be online, so let me know. And otherwise, after I wrap this up, I'm going to really right away start working on the finishing up the notebook for you. So, all right, I will see you all later. Have a good weekend. Thanks for watching. And, well, okay, where's my stop button? There it is. Okay, see you later. Have a good weekend. Bye.